Throughout Scripture, God gives individuals the authority to use self-defense against criminal attack. It logically follows that this authority is also granted to societies of individuals. In Deuteronomy chapter 20, God outlines a detailed foreign policy for Old Testament Israel. What we find are two distinct types of warfare. First, verses 10 through 15 outline a defensive-only war policy. How do we know this is defensive only? Because verses 10 through 11 say, "When you go near a city to fight against it, then proclaim an offer of peace. It shall be that if they accept your offer of peace, then all the people who are found in it shall be placed under tribute to you and serve you." Approaching a city and offering peace doesn't make any sense unless you've already been at war with them. And we know Israel didn't initiate the attack because the verse says that the city would be made Israel's slaves if they accepted the peace offer. Slavery in the Bible is for the purpose of restitution when crime has been committed. If someone stole from me, but he wasn't able to pay back, the judge could order him to work for me until full restitution had been paid. Therefore, we can safely conclude that the city in verses 10 through 11 had initiated an attack on Israel. This describes defensive-only war and was to be the basic foreign policy of Israel regarding nations in general. Next, verses 16 through 17 speak of specific inheritance nations. There's an immediate distinction between these inheritance nations and the nations in general of verse 15. Israel was to destroy the inheritance nations in order to fulfill Noah's curse against Canaan. This is the only type of aggressive war God allowed Israel to be involved in. Israel did defeat the nations and receive their rightful inheritance. So, how does this apply to us today? In the New Covenant, all nations are legitimate, and no nation has a monopoly on God's favor. The only type of aggressive war we are told to partake in now is the Great Commission, converting people to Christianity through evangelism. The conditions for aggressive war have been fulfilled, but the defensive-only policy still stands. This principle is reflected in the Christian just war theory developed throughout church history. Ron Paul holds to Christian just war theory, and it is the foundation for his non-interventionist foreign policy. Paul wants a strong national defense, equipped and ready to defend ourselves against attack and imminent threats. Though war is sometimes necessary, it should always be a last resort. To initiate war with potential enemies before they potentially attack is not moral, nor does it benefit national security. This extreme militarism only generates more hatred towards us, which puts us at greater risk of attack. Besides, we don't have the money to fund these wars, and our economy has drained because of it. Non-interventionist foreign policy is the historical American tradition and is presupposed in our Constitution. Article 1, Section 8 gives the power to declare war to Congress, not the President. The President was never supposed to have the power to send troops wherever he wanted, whenever he wanted, for whatever reason. The balance of power was to deter the temptation to go to war. Today, presidents initiate wars without declaration and without clear direction of what our goal is or who the enemy is. As a consequence, the wars never end and we never gain victory. Not following the rule of law also breeds hypocrisy. We go to war in the name of spreading liberty, yet we replace tyrants with worse tyrants, endangering the livelihood of innocent civilians, not to mention local Christians. This is a schizophrenic foreign policy, and it's time we changed our ways. As a military veteran himself, Paul believes national defense is the most important function of the federal government, and as Commander-in-Chief, he will bring our troops home from unnecessary wars and secure America's borders. Paul has displayed unwavering leadership in Congress, being the only congressman to introduce mark and reprisal legislation after September 11th. Had Congress followed Paul's constitutional direction, bin Laden and his conspirators would have been brought to justice in a quick and timely manner, rather than 10 years, multiple wars, and thousands of deaths later. Those who say Paul's foreign policy is weak or suicidal only have baseless accusations and must reconcile the fact that Paul receives more donations from active military than all other candidates combined. Are we to conclude that our troops want a weak and suicidal leader? Surely they deserve more respect than that. Paul's policy is the policy of loving your enemies, the policy of doing unto others as you would have them do to you. Ending our wars would literally change the world. Will we continue to perpetuate the wars out of fear of change? Or will we stand with Ron Paul and vote for a Christian foreign policy of peace?